8.6% of Toronto is officially jobless right now, and the provincial economy is hemorrhaging positions at a speed not seen since the 2012 meltdown. Not a seasonal dip, not a temporary tech cooling, a permanent structural collapse of white-collar and industrial sectors alike. While everyday Canadians scramble to pay rent, 10 specific Ontario hubs are quietly turning into absolute employment deserts. One historically bulletproof university town just suffered a brutal 5.3% single-year workforce wipeout, while another massive commuter hub is watching its tech crown dissolve into thin air as thousands of desperate applicants fight for a single entry-level role. The corporate ladder you are currently climbing in Canada's economic core is actively on fire, and staying blind to these regional data shifts could cost you a decade of career growth and negative home equity. Hit subscribe right now. Your future self will thank you for escaping the trap. Let's break it down. Number 10, Windsor, Ontario. Windsor is the kind of town where you can buy a massive brick home for the price of shoebox in Toronto and still have enough money left over for an emergency Detroit getaway. Sitting right across the river from Michigan, this border hub of 235,000 people feels like a gritty, industrial American city wrapped in a polite Canadian flag. It's famously known as Canada's automotive capital, but its first impression as a thriving blue-collar paradise hides a heavy economic reality. Let's break it down. Median home prices hover around $540,000, and your dollar stretches way further here than the national average. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, the regional unemployment rate pushed hard toward 9.7% as EV battery plant supply chains faced major shifts. Property crime near the core is highly visible, meaning your cheap mortgage comes with a side of hypervigilance. As one Reddito put it, living in Windsor means getting a great deal on a house just to watch every local factory cut shifts while you stare longingly at the Detroit skyline. So, what's the real trade-off? You'll save thousands on housing, but you might spend your evenings wondering if your career is about to be automated away. And don't even get me started on the drivers here. I swear, everyone in Windsor navigates the roads like they're trying to qualifying for NASCAR while simultaneously texting. People treat red lights on EC Row Expressway as casual suggestions, and don't get me started on trying to park a pickup truck downtown. It requires a mathematical degree. Picture this. It's a humid summer evening, and the smell of local wood-fired pizza fills the air as you watch the sunset over the Detroit riverfront. It's beautiful, peaceful, and genuinely charming, right until a modified Honda Civic slams its brakes to avoid a massive pothole. If you thought Windsor's industrial slowdown was rough, wait till you see the tech hub that just ran completely out of venture capital. Number 9, Kitchener-Waterloo. Kitchener-Waterloo is the kind of place where a genius tech startup and a 4-hour lineup for an entry-level grocery gig exist on the exact same block. Located about an hour west of Toronto, this twin-city hub of 590,000 people used to feel like Canada's bulletproof Silicon Valley. It's world-renowned for its universities and BlackBerry roots, but its shiny reputation as an unstoppable tech utopia is officially wearing incredibly thin. Let's break it down. Average rent scales past a painful $2,100, and the local cost of living sits at 8% above the national average. Translation: your hard-earned tech salary doesn't buy the luxury lifestyle it used to. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, regional unemployment quietly spiked to 7.9% as mid-tier tech firms began aggressively downsizing to survive high-interest debt cycles. On top of that, an oversaturation of graduates means local job boards are completely flooded. As one Reddito put it, I've applied to 450 junior developer roles in KW since January. I got 3 automated rejections and absolute, soul-crushing silence on the rest. So, what's the actual price of admission? You get a vibrant, trendy city filled with craft breweries, but you also get the crushing anxiety of knowing a single round of corporate layoffs could leave you competing against 3,000 other people for a basic desk job. And don't even get me started on the infrastructure. Why does a self-proclaimed tech hub have massive, total cellular dead zones along its brand-new LRT transit line? No joke, the moment you board the train to answer an urgent recruiter email, your phone acts like it's been transported back to 1998. Also, Trying to navigate the bizarre radial street layout of downtown Kitchener will make you feel like you're driving through a literal maze designed by a chaotic AI. Picture this. It's a crisp, foggy Tuesday morning. You're walking past a gorgeous, converted 19th-century brick factory that now houses an upscale cafe, inhaling the rich aroma of artisanal espresso. It feels incredibly peaceful, right until you round the corner and see an anxious line of students stretching 3 blocks long, all holding resumes in the freezing rain. Hey, at least in Windsor, you could buy a house for cheap while facing a tough job market. Looking at you, KW. And if you think Kitchener-Waterloo's white-collar hangover is wild, wait till you see what return-to-office mandates did to the job market in Ontario's ultimate pandemic commuter hotspot. Number 8. Barrie, Ontario. Barrie is the kind of town where you can enjoy breathtaking lakefront views while completely panicking over the fact that your Toronto boss just canceled your remote work privileges. Perched right on the shores of Lake Simcoe, this commuter hub of 153,000 people was the ultimate pandemic wonderland for anyone trying to escape the GTA. It's famous for its beaches and winter ski resorts, but the first impression of a relaxed cottage country lifestyle hides a brutal economic hangover. Let's break it down. Median home prices are locked at a staggering $740,000, and average rent hovers around $2,050. That's not a typo. You're paying premium Toronto-adjacent prices while your dollar does absolutely nothing for you locally. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, commuter employment numbers dropped over 4% as corporate employers aggressively force workers back to offices. Local professional services built around hybrid remote spend are quietly drying up, leaving the local job market incredibly barren. As one Reddito put it, my Toronto boss mandated 4 days in office. Between gas on the 400 and the lack of local Barrie job options, I'm stuck choosing between exhaustion or bankruptcy. So, what's the real trade-off? You get beautiful weekend hikes and fresh air, but you also spend your weekdays in total survival mode, fighting massive mortgage stress while local wages remain completely stagnant. And don't even get me started on the weather extremes. The absolute unpredictability of Lake Simcoe snow squalls will turn your morning commute into a real-life horror movie in a matter of seconds. Whiteout conditions will trap you on Highway 400 for hours, and the local snowplows treat suburban side streets like a total afterthought. Also, trying to drive anywhere near Bayfield Street on a weekend means sitting in a mile-long gridlock of tourists who don't know where they're going. Picture this. It's a bitter, freezing January morning at 6 a.m. The lake looks hauntingly beautiful covered in ice, and the air smells like crisp pine wood. It feels incredibly peaceful, right until your car, sliding sideways down your driveway, reminds you that you have a mandatory 90-minute commute ahead of you. Remember Kitchener-Waterloo's tech crash? Barrie said, "Hold my regional craft beer," and crashed the entire remote work dream instead. And if you think Barrie's commuter nightmare is rough, wait till you see the Eastern manufacturing hub that is completely losing its economic identity. Subscribe before your current manager issues a surprise return-to-office mandate and completely ruins your calendar. This channel finds the actual economic escape routes across Canada. Don't get left behind when everyone else decides to pack up and head out west. Number 7. Oshawa, Ontario. Oshawa is the kind of town where you can live in a brand-new, $500,000 suburban subdivision, but still have to drive past 3 boarded-up storefronts just to find a job that pays above minimum wage. Anchoring the eastern edge of the Greater Toronto Area, this Durham Region city of 180,000 people is trying desperately to rebrand itself from a rugged auto town into a polished tech and commuter haven. It's famously known as the home of General Motors Canada, but that proud industrial history is masking a massive, modern employment crunch. Let's break it down. The median home price sits at an eye-watering $780,000, and average rent is creeping up to $1,980. Translation: you are paying near Toronto prices to live next to Lake Ontario's industrial sectors. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, the regional unemployment rate hit a painful 8.7% as secondary manufacturing suppliers quietly cut shifts ahead of massive trade realignments. The retail and commercial sectors are completely overbilled for what locals actually earn, leaving the job market barren. As one local posted, Oshawa feels like it's pretending to be a rich Toronto suburb, but nobody actually has a job here that pays enough to cover an $800,000 mortgage. So, what's the actual trade-off? You get a shiny new townhome and access to the GO train, but you also get the crushing realization that local high-paying career tracks are completely non-existent. And don't even get me started on the roads. Trying to commute out of Oshawa via the 401 through Durham region is a psychological torture device. I swear, the never-ending, soul-crushing construction delays mean you will spend half your youth staring at the brake lights of a construction truck. Why does it take 45 minutes just to move 3 kilometers eastward on a Tuesday afternoon? It makes absolutely no sense. Picture this. It's a chilly, gray autumn evening. You're walking through a quiet, master-planned suburban neighborhood where the houses all look identical, smelling the faint scent of lake dampness and fresh asphalt. It feels completely normal, right until you notice that every third driveway has a moving truck, and the local plazas are dominated entirely by cash advance joints and empty commercial spaces. Number 6. Guelph, Ontario. Guelph is the kind of town where you can buy $1 million historic limestone cottage but still find yourself competing with 1,000 university students just to land a part-time shift at a local grocery store. Located an hour west of Toronto, this eco-conscious community of 145,000 people has always prided itself on being totally recession-proof. It's famous for its world-class agricultural university and thriving independent culture, but that cozy, bulletproof vibe just hit a massive, unexpected brick wall. Let's break it down. The median home price sits at an aggressive $795,000, and average rent is locking people out at $2,150. Your dollar definitely doesn't stretch here. It actively vanishes. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, Guelph shockingly suffered the sharpest single-year employment decline in all of Ontario, with local jobs plummeting by a brutal 5.3%. Advanced manufacturing and agri-tech sectors are facing massive corporate budget consolidations, while severe local commercial tax hikes are forcing independent businesses to quietly shut down or relocate. As one Reddito brutally put it, Guelph used to be the place where you could always find a decent job. Now, even the local factories aren't taking resumes, and the university is freezing hires. So, what's the real trade-off? You get a beautiful, green city with an incredible community spirit, but you also get a local job market that has completely dried up while living costs remain stuck in a stratosphere. And don't even get me started on the local cafe hours. For a city that practically runs on academic overcaffeination, why does every artisanal coffee shop in the downtown core close at exactly 2 p.m.? No joke, right when you hit that mid-afternoon remote work slump and desperately need a caffeine boost, the entire city shuts its doors and leaves you stranded. Picture this. It's a peaceful Sunday afternoon in the historic downtown. The limestone buildings look gorgeous in the golden hour light, and the air smells like fresh rain and organic bakery bread. It feels completely idyllic, right until you pass a row of vacant storefronts and realize there hasn't been a new corporate hiring sign posted on this block in months. Number 5. London, Ontario. London is the kind of town where you can walk down a beautiful, historic tree-lined avenue while completely stressing over the fact that the local corporate ladder is missing half its rungs. Located deep in southwestern Ontario, this city of 430,000 people is affectionately called the Forest City and historically relied on its massive healthcare, insurance, and education sectors to stay afloat. It's a major regional hub, but its first impression as a stable, mid-sized sanctuary hides an incredibly harsh corporate slowdown. Let's break it down. The median home price sits at $620,000, and average rent forces a steep $1,900 out of your pocket every month. Sounds like a reasonable alternative to Toronto, right? But then, regional unemployment pushed hard up to 8.4% as institutional hiring freezes took total control. Thanks to massive budget cuts from lower international student revenues, the education and public admin sectors are aggressively downsizing, while the healthcare sector has plenty of vacancies but zero budget to actually hire full-time staff. As one Reddito put it, with Western University capping budgets, the entire local economy is grinding to a halt. Rent is high, but the career jobs are completely gone. So, what's the actual price tag? You get a city that feels like a big town with great parks, but you also spend your days watching gig economy saturation completely bottom out secondary wages while visible economic distress grows right outside your door. And don't even get me started on the drivers and the legendary transit gridlock on Richmond Street. I swear, trying to drive across London during rush hour turns a simple 5-kilometer trip into a 45-minute psychological test. There is no major highway connecting the north and south ends of the city, meaning you are permanently stuck behind a city bus or a delivery truck while someone in front of you forgets how a turning lane works. Picture this. It's a romantic, foggy autumn evening. You're walking past stunning Victorian brick homes, listening to the gentle rustle of falling leaves, breathing in the crisp, fresh evening air. It feels absolutely serene, right until you turn on a Dundas Street and find yourself walking past a row of completely abandoned storefronts and heavily quiet commercial blocks. Number 4. Ottawa, Ontario. Think a government town is safe from an economic slowdown? Tell that to the thousands of tech and management contractors currently getting wiped off the federal payroll. As Canada's capital, this massive city of over 1 million people is usually insulated from the harsh realities of the private sector by a giant blanket of civil service stability. It's famous for the Parliament buildings, the Rideau Canal, and a notoriously quiet lifestyle, but its image as a safe bureaucratic haven is currently fracturing under an unprecedented federal hiring freeze. Let's break it down. The median home price sits around $650,000, and average rent will cost you an easy $2,000 a month. Your dollar faces a steep 7% premium over the national average here. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, Ottawa unceremoniously lost over 13,900 net jobs in a single 12-month window heading into 2026, dropping total employment by 1.6%. The federal public service downsizing has completely decimated local IT, consulting, and defense firms in Canada that rely on government cash flows. As one Redditor put it, I was a federal tech contractor for 6 years. My contract was canceled with 2 days' notice due to budget cuts, and the private market here is completely dry. So, what's the actual trade-off? You get a very clean, family-friendly city with top-tier museums, but you are also tying your financial survival to public sector austerity in an incredibly stagnant corporate landscape. And don't even get me started on the local store hours and nightlife. Ottawa is the only G7 capital city that shuts down completely at 8 p.m. on a weekend. No joke, if you work a late shift or just want a bite to eat past sunset, your options are basically a single gas station or a corporate fast food drive-thru. The entire city treats fun like it's a security risk. Picture this. It's a peaceful winter evening, with heavy snow blanketing the historic government complexes. The historic architecture looks stunning under the streetlights, and the air smells like fresh winter pine. It feels like a postcard, right until you look closely at the sterile, dark office windows and realize those corporate floors haven't seen a new hire onboarding in months. Number 3. Hamilton, Ontario. If you've ever wanted to watch a city try to rebrand itself from a grid-and-gears manufacturing powerhouse into a trendy, artisanal playground while its actual foundation aggressively erodes, welcome to Hamilton. Nestled right at the western tip of Lake Ontario, the ambitious city, or steel town to anyone who's been here for more than 5 minutes, has spent the last decade trying to lure priced-out millennials away from Toronto. It's got a world-class healthcare network and a beautiful, rugged landscape defined by the Niagara Escallop. But beneath the surface of its new coffee shops and indie boutiques, the city's blue-collar core is getting quietly hollowed out by automated production lines and corporate downsizings. Let's break it down. The average home benchmark price sits stubbornly at $744,000, and standard monthly rent rests at a painful $1,990. Hamilton demands a heavy financial buy-in for a town that lost over 9,000 core industrial logistics jobs over the past year. As manufacturing plants automate their shop floors to stay competitive, the stable, unionized working-class jobs that used to support entire generations have vanished. They've been replaced by a massive influx of precarious, part-time service work. As one local put it on the Hamilton subreddit, the city is pricing out the very people who build it. If you don't bring a remote Toronto salary with you, you're competing for $18 an hour warehouse shift just to pay $2,000 for a basement apartment. So, what's the actual trade-off? You get a fiercely proud city with an incredible arts scene and gorgeous nature trails, but you are also paying near Toronto living costs while the local economy shifts away from living wage employment. And don't even get me started on the air quality and the stark regional divide. On any given humid summer morning, depending on which way the wind blows off the industrial sector in the north end, the air can taste distinctly like a handful of loose pennies. The divide between the wealthy, picturesque suburban mountain and the gritty, hard-bitten lower city isn't just geographical. It's a massive wealth chasm that smacks you in the face the moment you drive down the Claremont Access. Picture this. It's a brisk, scenic autumn afternoon. You're standing at the edge of the Dundas Peak, looking out over a breathtaking canopy of fiery red and gold leaves stretching across the valley. It looks like an absolute paradise, right until you turn around to head downtown and find yourself dodging cracked pavement, navigating past heavily distressed social infrastructure, and realizing the local factories are running on half the human staff they had 3 years ago. Number 2. St. Catharines, Niagara, on. St. Catharines is the kind of town where you can sip an award-winning local Riesling on a breathtaking winery patio while completely stressing over the fact that your seasonal tourism gig won't cover next month's grocery bill. Sprawled across the gorgeous Niagara Peninsula, this region of 420,000 people has built its entire identity around wine country, Brock University, and the millions of tourists who flock to Niagara Falls every summer. But beneath the scenic postcard charm of orchards and historic canals, the local service-driven economy is finding out the hard way that you can't build a stable middle class on part-time hospitality hours. Let's break it down. The MLS home benchmark price sits at a relatively modest $575,300, and standard rents hover right around $1,800. It looks like an affordable paradise on paper compared to Toronto, but your dollar doesn't buy security when long-term joblessness makes up nearly 28% of total local unemployment. As discretionary consumer spending hits a modern low, seasonal hospitality positions are becoming wildly unstable, and the complete lack of corporate head offices means high-paying advancement tracks are practically non-existent. As one local posted on Reddit, unless you want to work retail, pick grapes, or serve coffee to tourists for 5 months a year, there is zero career growth here. Everyone I graduated with has already left for Alberta. So, what's the actual price of admission? You get an incredible culinary scene and a slower pace of life, but you also trade away economic stability, trapping yourself in a cycle of precarious gig work where local salaries match the low-tier opportunities. And don't even get me started on the bugs and infrastructure during the spring. I swear, the terrifying swarms of midges and lake flies that blanket the lakeside communities along Lake Ontario make working or sitting on an outdoor patio an absolute nightmare. They will coat your car, your windows, and your face the second you step outside, turning a simple walk into a sensory disaster. And don't get me started on the absolute traffic gridlock along the QEW whenever a long weekend hits. Local roads turn into a massive parking lot of tourists trying to find the falls. Picture this. It's a warm, golden May evening. You're walking through the historic streets of Port Dalhousie, watching the yachts dock as the sun sets over the water, smelling the fresh breeze off the lake. It feels deeply peaceful and romantic, right until you pass a row of seasonal ice cream shops and vintage attractions covered in faded, sun-bleached help wanted signs from 3 seasons ago. Number 1. Toronto, Ontario. Welcome to the absolute boss level of the Canadian Employment Hunger Games, where a master's degree and 5 years of corporate banking experience gets you an automated rejection email within 4 minutes of applying. As Canada's undisputed financial, tech, and cultural crown jewel, this sprawling metropolis of 3 million people is the economic engine of the entire country. People move here expecting to hustle their way into a glittering glass skyscraper and a 6-figure salary, but the current reality of the city's job market is a cutthroat, oversaturated wake-up call. Let's break it down. The median home price sits at an eye-watering $1,050,000, and standard monthly rent forces an brutal $2,450 out of your wallet. Your cost of living faces a massive 22% premium over the national average. Sounds like a dream, right? But then, despite recent slight monthly fluctuations, The city's job market is so incredibly hyper-competitive that a single, standard data analyst posting routinely pulls in an average of 158 applicants per open position. Corporate consulting firms and major financial institutions are quietly executing rolling workforce reductions, leaving thousands of overqualified professionals scrambling for survival. As one local posted on the Toronto subreddit, "I was laid off from my corporate banking gig months ago. Now I'm literally competing with hundreds of people just to get an interview for a basic, entry-level office admin job that barely pays enough to cover rent on a bachelor apartment." So, what's the actual price of admission? You get to live in a world-class city with incredible food and endless entertainment, but you also trade away your peace of mind, living paycheck to paycheck in a market where corporate hiring metrics are stacked entirely against you. And don't even get me started on trying to stay connected while commuting on the TTC subway lines. I swear, the complete loss of cellular data and Wi-Fi the exact second your train ducks underground downtown is a special kind of corporate torture. You will be right in the middle of drafting an urgent response to a recruiter or polishing a digital portfolio when your phone completely bricks itself, leaving you to stare awkwardly at the ad for a personal injury lawyer across from you. Picture this. It's a chaotic Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. The financial district skyscrapers are glowing beautifully against a dark night sky, looking like the epitome of wealth and success. The air smells like hot street vendor pretzels and exhaust fumes. It looks incredibly powerful and inspiring, right until you walk past 3 separate apartment buildings and spot a line of moving trucks filled with professionals packing up their lives to leave for Alberta.